So eventually, not this week, eventually I will hire a GM. And I have a couple guys in mind that I have relationships with on the professional level that have reached out and I know have interest, and I'm going to sort through that. I can't give you a time frame. It won't be this recruiting cycle, this portal cycle, but eventually it's something that's important to me to manage all this, right? Because it's a lot for a coaching staff to manage, especially as it continues to evolve, the rules continue to evolve, the salary cap, house, all that is going to kick in. Eventually I will hire a GM, but it'll be in the coming months, probably before the next cycle. Currently, I sat down in preparation with a couple different NBA teams that I've worked for and just asked those guys how you do it, right? How would you structure? The NBA is more complicated because not only is there a salary cap, there's a CBA with a lot of different tax restrictions, penalties if you cross thresholds. And it's like what you talk about, like you need lawyers and a team of lawyers to work through this. It is truthfully very tough to explain at times. Now there's CBA experts that go through that. College, there's far less restrictions, and now it's going to evolve and it's going to change here coming up, but it's much more straightforward, right? At least to me it is. You have a certain level of money in the account, and then you go spend that money on the best players you can find that fit your system, right? So I have different tiers, right? When I evaluate and watch players with my staff, I just do tier 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Tier 4 is you're basically a walk-on, you get no money, right? Tier 1 is a certain, it would be like a max player, right? Whether or not this is the right way to do it, this is just the way my mind works. Tier 1 would be a max player, so you can probably only maybe have 1 or 2 of those guys, and it's eating up like half of your budget, right? Tier 2 are like rotation guys that I would think are in your top 8 to 10 players theoretically, and obviously that can change, but they have a different percentage of whatever your budget is. And then tier 3 are more your developmental guys, right? Maybe a high school player or 2, maybe a red shirt. They get a little pocket change to get around town and go buy some Guthrie's, but they're not going to get rich. All right, is Guthrie's one of our sponsors? They should be. Great chicken. All right, so that's the way
There's been an explosion of chicken places since you left.
Really? What are they? I need them after.
Yeah.
What are they?
Slim chickens.
Slim
You
chicken.
got Raising Cane's now? You probably know
I saw Raising Cane's, so I love some Raising Cane's. This body was not built by salad. Listen, but the Guthrie's is like, and it's right across the street from. I was in Guthrie's parking lot at like 11:45 the other night. And I literally, it was my first meal of the day. I hadn't eaten all day, and I was like, what's open? I couldn't do like the national, and I saw Raising Cane's, and I was like, I'm not cheating on Guthrie's. We're going Guthrie's. So yeah, that's more so how I'm evaluating this, and whether we stick exactly to that is to be seen. And obviously the budget, hopefully a lot of people give and will continue to give, and it's been incredible how many people have stepped up. But the budget changes constantly. So now your mid-level guys might get a little bit more. You know, the lower level guys might get a little bit more. So that's what we're working through right now.
I'd like to clarify. Your back was turned. Aslan actually asked that question. I did.
I'm so sorry.
It's good.
I'm so sorry. Great hat, by the way. That's a nice hat.
I'll only
Yeah.
clarify because I do have a question. I didn't want you to think I was hogging the whole thing.
Okay.
But my question was about, it was probably surreal to be the head coach at Florida State when
Yeah.
you first got the job a little bit, but reality can slap you in the face when you have to tell people they're not employed here anymore.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because that's maybe the downside of being in charge of everything, is you have to maybe disappoint people or tell players, you need to probably go somewhere else. You don't fit my system.
Right. Yeah. Those are the realities of being a leader of any. It doesn't matter if it's sports or not. Those are the realities. You got to have tough conversations with people, and you have to be comfortable and confident in those conversations. Not that it's the best for me, but it's the best for the program, right? And so that was an emotional day, and it's continuing because I still have relationships with these people. So it's difficult, right? At times to say, hey, listen, this probably is going to work out, but if I can help you, and I want to help you, and I want to keep our relationship, because I hope and I pray that a relationship isn't built on employment, right? I hope and I pray that a relationship is authentic, right? And those people really care about you, and you really care about them. So that's where I stand with that. Those were tough conversations, and it was an emotional day for me. and they continue to be tough conversations with the players, right? I had to do a couple today of just like, hey, the more film I watch and the more I study you, you probably aren't going to fit with me. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad player. It just means that for your best interest, you should probably play somewhere else and look somewhere else. And that's great. And I'm going to help you. I'm not going to abandon. I've been cut from teams professionally before, not at the college level, but it hurts. There's everyone has a little bit of an ego and a soul that's like, damn, they don't want me. The good part is a lot of these guys were like, well, I was gonna hit the portal anyways. And I'm like, well, great. It works out for both of us. So that's what we're going through. Some of those conversations are tough though, you know, and it's just the reality of doing business.
That's what I said when I got cut in middle school.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do you still talk to that coach? I don't like it.
What do you want in strength and conditioning as you build that out?
Yeah. So I unofficially, I don't know if I can. Again, unofficially, I've let's just say I have someone in mind for that position. I've had someone in mind for a long time for that position. Someone I know on a very relational level, aside from how good he is at his job. Again, everything's going to go back to creating an ecosystem to help these guys maximize their talent to get to the highest professional level possible. Right? That is my duty. That's my job. So I have to put the pieces in place. So the guy I'm going to hire, I'll just give you a couple characteristics. He's done it at the college level. He's trained privately a lot of professional athletes. Again, high character individual. He and his wife were former athletes. They're an absolute blessing of a family to us. They're going to fit right in with our community, both what we're doing in this building and in Tallahassee. And most importantly, all those things are great, but he does an incredible job developing, especially young men, into grown men. And that's something that when you think about strength and conditioning, everyone just thinks about getting stronger. And it's like, no, how do you mesh the weight room with the basketball court? And that's what's important to me. Like, I don't care how strong you are in the weight room. I care how strong you are when you're like tangled with someone for a rebound, right? Can you move laterally? Can you explode vertically quickly, right? Those quick twitch muscles that you need to be an elite professional athlete. I need them developing those every day. I also, and I told this to the guy I'm eventually going to hire, I'm trying to be the fastest team in the country. And I don't say that lightly, right? So the conditioning aspect and in our evaluation, we need an athletic team that's smart, that can make quick decisions, and that has the endurance to play a nonstop, relentless pace that the opponent can't keep up with. And that's hard to do. That's hard. That's a lot of pressure on the strength coach. What I said to him is what he agreed. A lot of our conditioning is going to come on the court, right? I would rather have court conditioned people than track or sand or anything else conditioned people where, hey, you can go run a 400-meter sprint at a high level. Can you run 94 feet faster than anyone else? That's what I care about. And then obviously the strength and the maturation and the diet and nutrition, all those things are important to me.
You obviously talked a lot about raising money. There's something that's going on right now that like professional coaches don't want to go into the college game because so much of that is raising money. It's something to do with coaching basketball. Why is that something that's not scary to you and almost not something that you enjoy doing?
Yeah, I don't look at it, again, I don't look at it raising money. I look at it as meeting people and building relationships. And it's something that you guys will find that I hope I'm authentic with. I enjoy learning from people and getting to know people and connecting with the community and going to different coffee shops and eating out, you know, when I have time, even if I'm on the phone the whole time, trying new restaurants. Like, I enjoy people. And it doesn't matter if it's in basketball or outside of basketball, I enjoy building those relationships. And through that, I hope that there's a mutual benefit, right? That they get to know me, they get to know what program I'm building, what type of people I'm bringing into Tallahassee, and they naturally want to support that.
Kurt?
You talked about the tiers of contracts. It feels like the NBA influence coming in, obviously, with levels
Sure.
of contract there. The guys who've made that NBA to college jump, I know Kevin Young's one you talked about. How much is that and kind of your beliefs in that based in conversations with them and how they do things versus a kind of a Loucks original of how you kind of build things up?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of different college coaches, and basketball's a small world, man. A lot of people create this like divide between NBA and college and high school. Like everyone knows each other, right? There's so many college coaches that have come to our training camps to learn from us, but in the process, we also learn from them. So there's a lot of conversations behind the scene when I was considering the job and going through the interview process of how do you do this, right? How do you structure it? In my mind, I thought I had like, okay, this isn't that hard to figure out. Like it's tough. Don't get me wrong. I'm not minimizing the challenge, but I generally am like very detailed of like, nope, this check this off. And through those conversations, some of my vantage points changed, right? And I'm not saying I'm doing exactly what BYU's doing, because obviously the BYU has, I don't know where they're finding this money now, and I'm not going to comment on that, but they have an extremely huge resource base where they can go pay guys an absurd amount of money to play basketball, which is incredible, both for BYU and for those individuals playing. But that's not our reality. We got to be a little more resourceful, and I'm okay with that. And through that, you got to build a structure that fits for Florida State. I don't care what works for West Virginia or Louisville or anywhere else. I care about here. And so obviously you got to take advice and learn from people and, okay, well, what if this pops up, right? What are these challenges? But they're not living my reality and I'm not living theirs. And so through that, I've tried to, and I'm sure it'll continue to adjust, I've tried to create the best structure in terms of our, not only recruiting, evaluation, but then roster management and salary cap management that I can see fit for us.
Yeah, you touched a little bit when you mentioned the pace, but let's say that, so the kid's got a good moral compass, he's tenacious, he wants to maximize talent. Now you're sitting in the living room, what are you telling a recruit about like the offense that they're gonna run? Is it pattern offense, pattern matching? Is it motion, R&R?
Yeah, so and all those things are good, and they're all like keywords and buzzwords and like read and react and drive and kick and pace and space, and like I have basketball philosophies, and I basically I think I touched on the absolutes, right? And that's my philosophy. Those absolutes will not change from game to game. I don't care who we're playing. I don't care what the game plan is. Those absolutes, those 4 things on each side of the ball will remain. And so if you want to dive into what those details mean and what it's going to look like, I think it's going to be heavily geared towards the modern, quote unquote, modern basketball of the NBA in terms of the spacing, the cutting, the movement, creating as much space as possible at all times so that you can attack the paint, collapse the paint, either finish at the rim, get the foul line, or make the right read, and do that over and over and over and over again. Now, with that, in dead ball situations, we're going to be very structured in our play calls. But in live ball situations, whether it's off of a make, right, we're going to try to get the ball down the court immediately. Before they can get back, the ball's already attacking them. You attack a non-set defense. And especially off of misses and turnovers, we're trying to fly, right? We're trying to create the best shot as quickly as possible, consistently, over and over and over again. And it does 2 things, right? Generally, the efficiency skyrockets when you play fast, if you have the right people and you know how to do it, and you work at it every day. But the other thing is it gives you opportunities to offensive rebound, right? When a defense is not set and the defense is in constant rotations, it's hard to find a guy to box out. And so as soon as the shot goes up, and again, it's something you drill and structure, you got guys flying in for offensive rebounds. Again, one of the most efficient shots in basketball is off of the offensive rebound because the defense is absolutely scrambled. So in terms of what it's going to look like, it will have pro elements. I think Alabama's done a great job, and Nate Oates has done a great job, and he took it even to the next level when he hired his staff. And it's a couple of guys I grew up with and I've worked with on his staff that run his offense. All those guys came from the NBA, right? And so they have done a consistent good job, and the results have come both in terms of their offensive efficiency and with their wins. And obviously Oates has done a great job bringing the right pieces in and on the roster and all of that too. So, yeah.
Obviously, you don't have your whole staff yet, and so you have limited man hours. There's so many kids that are going to be coming available to the portal. How many guys have you looked at and assessed, and how much time can you spend on each guy, and what's that process look like right now?
Yeah, Ira, that's a great question, and I would answer it like, how fast is a car, right? Like, I have no idea how many guys we've talked to. I couldn't tell you how many guys I've talked to today, because it's constant, right? And our staff has done an incredible job putting me in position where they give me the quick note. Hey, this guy's important. We watched film on this guy yesterday. You approved it. So generally we watch film, and I can tell in about 3 minutes if a guy's going to fit or not. You know, we throw games up against top tier opponents. I watch them randomized, and I can tell if a guy's going to fit very quickly. And now I'm not saying I won't go back and watch more. I'm like, all right, I may have made a mistake on this one, especially if the staff's like, you got to watch more. Because some guys I'm like, this kid stinks. Like, let's move on. He's not going to fit. And they circle back an hour later and they're like, just watch 10 more minutes. And I do, and I'm like, all right, you're right. Let's keep them on. So there's like this check mark the way we're doing things. Obviously, we got to find that they're available. We got to find that we're able to talk to their representatives. Some of these kids already know where they're going, right? And some of these kids we're not allowed to talk to. We got to watch film, right? So I got tons of GAs, managers who are doing an incredible job. Every guy that hits the portal, they make a profile so I can quickly scan it. They have film that's attached with it, and then we sit as a staff and watch it. And if they're out of town, we're check marking like, hey, if you're recruiting, we're gonna watch these 30 guys, and we're gonna give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Once we give a thumbs up, then we start, attacking the quote unquote recruiting in terms of, okay, who are their people? Who do we contact? Are they truly available? What's their quote unquote price range? And everyone's inflated right now. Like, everyone's $1 million player right now. Until we get down to the nitty gritty and you realize that some will go that high, and then some will be a little more realistic with where they're gonna fall.
Liam? No? Any more questions for Coach? Corey?
This is kind of a philosophical question, I think. When you watch a kid in high school, or a kid that's played 1 year at college and he doesn't have a great shot, or he doesn't have a high three-point
Yep.
percentage, can you see in that kid, do you think that, like, okay, he's not a great shooter now, but he could be? Or would you rather get the ready-made, I know this dude can shoot, and when I put him on the court, he can shoot above 40% from three?
Right. No, that's Corey. I can't keep giving you compliments.
But the other one was my ex-wife. called me about that. That was incredible.
That is a great question, because it's something we argue as a staff. Not only here, we argue as a staff quite frequently at the NBA level, right? Like, what can you teach, and then what is just like God-given, right? I think generally guys can become better shooters, but there is a certain threshold that you can just call it touch, you can call it hand-eye coordination, call it whatever you want. Like, if I take a bad shooter, can I make him an okay to good shooter? 1,000%. Every day of the week, I believe that through their technique, through shot preparation, through like the structure of their workouts, your player development, everything. You wear a balance. It all goes. You can make a bad shooter a good shooter. Can you make a bad shooter a great shooter? It depends who you ask, right? Because I've seen it done, and whether that's just like happenstance, whether it's a miracle, or whether it's like truly development, is probably an argument that a lot of people would disagree on. Generally, I believe a true player development process, again, I'm gonna use the word ecosystem, can help in almost any skilled area if you have the right work ethic, if you have the right attitude, if you have the right coaching staff to carry that out. Now, when it comes to like very dialed in skills like shooting, right? Or like hitting as a baseball player, right? Or like even like throwing a football. Like, can you teach someone to throw a football? For sure. Can you teach someone how to be Tom Brady? Like, probably not, right? So there's a certain threshold when we watch and evaluate, to your point. If a kid's 6'7", if he's long, if he's athletic, he can guard, if he's making the right play every time, and you see a shot and you're like, what was that, right? Now, to me, I would err on the side of, no, I'll bring him in, and our structure will help him. And it's worth taking a gamble because he checks every other box, and he has these God-given abilities that you can't teach. Now, if a kid's like 5'11" and he can't shoot, I'm probably gonna pass. Like, you have to have an elite level skill at that size. But if you have all these other things, now you can't fill your team with those guys, because what's gonna end up happening is if you have 4 guys on the court that can't shoot with a lot of length, the paint will be so crowded that what they do well at attacking the rim, there's no opportunity, because it's like a traffic jam every time you get in there. You have, again, it goes back to the puzzle. You have to surround those guys with levels of shooters that are like, they have a gravity to them that allows those quote unquote non-shooter slasher players to attack the rim and be efficient on the court.
Why is the state of Florida so important to you? I mean, obviously it's an international game.
Yeah.
But you've hired two guys that have major deep ties to the state. You came out of the state to play hoops. Why is the Sunshine State ultimately kind of the backyard you want to grow it out of?
Yeah, great question. No, number one, and whether I'm right or wrong, I truly believe the state of Florida has some of the best athletes in the world coming up and you talk about California, you talk about Texas, you make arguments for both, and both would be valid, right? But Florida, and there's other pockets, right? Especially for basketball, you talk the Upper East, Chicago, Atlanta. You know, there's areas in pockets that you're like, okay, a lot of guys come out of there. When you look at Florida as a whole, and you look at how many elite level collegiate basketball players have come from Florida, and even going on, how many pros have come from Florida, go back like 30 years. Like, it is insane, right? So what an opportunity in our backyard to attempt, and I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it, attempt to throw a blanket over the state of Florida, right? Most importantly, I care about these. This is my home state. This is my home. You talk about Tampa, Clearwater, Orlando, like St. Pete, and even going down to South Florida. I used to play with Breakdown. They're based out of Miami. I would go to Miami almost every weekend. Jackson, like these are hot spots for basketball. So I would be ignorant. It would be a malpractice to not start with your backyard, right? And what a better way to hire two guys that have deep relationships with the state of Florida, and that most importantly care about Florida State's success.
You talked about the people you're in negotiations with to join your staff. Do you have an ideal timeline for when the staff is filled out? And I guess after Monday, how do you deal with the portal maybe undermanned relative to some other teams?
Yeah, an ideal timeline is I would have had it done about 3 weeks ago. The realistic timeline, especially for one of them, it's gonna take some time now. And so, and again, I talked about resourcefulness, both on starting with me laying the foundation for what I'm trying to do. We have to have people on our staff that can do more with less, all right? And that starts with just your workload. And it's gonna be, the first thing I do when I hire someone, and I got this from Mike Brown, and I think it's super special. I always talk to the wife, if they have a wife. All right? Both these guys are married with kids. And first I thank them, right, for allowing their husband to come trust me, right, with their livelihood. But then I apologize, because we gotta get to work. And that's the reality of being a coach's wife, is they have to do so much at home with the kids, with the move, with the planning, with the prep, and it's tough. And every coach's wife goes through it. Our reality is we don't have a livelihood if we don't get to work. And so, starting with your question of like, some of these coaches will take a little bit of time just with their circumstances, but I'm trying to put the best staff together in America, all right? And sometimes that takes time. We will have enough to get it done. And I'm gonna tell that to our players before a big game. We have enough to win this game, all right? But it takes a certain level of commitment, of energy, of enthusiasm, of passion to wake up with that fire to go get it done. And that's what we're gonna do. I never look at any situation of like, oh, this is gonna be tough. It's like, no, let's go do it, right? And our coaches feel that, and I'm hiring the right people to go feel that. Well, we wait on some other things contractually to take place.
William.
Almost following up on what Chris said, more hyper-local with Tallahassee. You talked about your love for this place. We've heard it in these last 30 minutes or so when you're talking about Guthrie's and the community coffee shops. How much value do you put in finding people that can help you build those relationships with the community? We know Florida State is so huge here, football-wise especially, but for you, building up that sense of community, whether it's fundraising, recruitment, how important is that for you and what you want to do with this program?
Yeah, super important. I mean, like you said, much more localized in the state of Florida, which I obviously grew up in and care about. Tallahassee means something to me. And I was with, not to name drop, but I was with Charlie Ward last night and his wife. And I was talking to Charlie about how creative a job he's done over at Florida High, and the talent he's brought in, the talent he's developed for the college game. And you see these guys that are super successful at their spots. But the other reality is it I don't want to say it angers me, but it's like, these are Tallahassee kids, right? Why are they taking their programs to where they need to go? They should be here taking our, and now I'm not trying to, I don't know if I'm breaking any rules. I'm not trying to cross any lines, but the local Tallahassee kid, both football, basketball, baseball, it is a special place in Tallahassee that just develops these elite level leaders and athletes. So again, both in Florida and in Tallahassee, I'm going to make a concentrated effort to not let these kids get out and hopefully eventually represent our university.
You talk about that only takes you 3 minutes to watch film on somebody, and you know that he can play for you.
Yeah.
But building a team through the portal, isn't it still kind of a leap of faith? Like, how do you really know? It feels like so much speed dating that, like, these guys, they're competitive, they're going to fit the system, or was it just 5 good minutes of film and 1 good interview, but you have to take them because you're such a short amount of time?
Yeah, and let me reword that. The guys we're like truly going to go after, I mean, if you walk in my office right now, there's film just looping, right? So I get a really good feel for, I'm not going to put an exact number on, but there's probably 20 to 30 kids that we're going to like hyper focus on, that we've already narrowed down, both with analytically they fit, positionally they're going to fit, and then they're the type of kid we want, right? And now we may strike out on all 30 of those, and we may have to start over and find the next 30, and that's okay. That's the reality. I don't know how many kids play in, I shouldn't say kids, young men play in high D1 basketball right now, but it's a huge number. And the crazy part is a lot of those kids are gonna be in the portal. So we have to be diligent in evaluating the right young man for us. And we're not gonna stop doing it, even if we strike out on all those guys.
It's a weird question, but it's the age we live in. Will you guys make announcements about kids that are returning? Or will we just look at the roster in the fall and see that they're still here? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Will y'all make an announcement about guys being retained or not?
Yeah, so we're working on something, and I don't know if I can execute it or not, so I don't know how much detail I'm gonna go into, but it is a great question. Obviously, we would like to let people know who's returning. I can't do it right now, just because I'm still going through it with the rest of the roster. We do have a couple committed that now we're working on the negotiations of, what they want to make and what we're able to pay them, which is all great. Like I said, everyone wants to get paid and their families want a certain level of money, and I'm okay with that, because if I believe in them, I should want to pay them, right? But those conversations are still ongoing. And then the conversations of, there's a few that, hey, you could return, maybe you couldn't. And some of these guys may hit the portal and they may be right back here. And that's okay too. They can test the waters. What I tell them is, as you test the waters, I'm also testing the waters. And there's a chance I find someone in your position maybe a little bit better and a little bit cheaper. And that's the way I got to run the program, right? I got to be resourceful and find guys that are going to fit. So that's the kind of give and take we're doing. Until the portal closes, we're probably not going to release much on who's actually in the roster, just out of respect for everyone involved.
And you mentioned analytics. Obviously, it's become such an important part of sports, not just basketball. How important is that to you? And you mentioned your coaching philosophies earlier, and how important is it to have guys on your staff that can use those analytics to either identify talent, identify weakness in another team, and kind of that furthering of sports and science coming together?
Yeah, I think it's important. And I don't want to build a staff that's exactly like me. Like, if everyone's the same on the staff, it's usually probably not going to function great. I need people to disagree with each other. I need my assistant coaches to have let's see how to word this, the gusto to stand up to me and tell me, I disagree with you on that one. I don't care what the numbers say. This kid's good, and I'm okay with that, because that was my role for guys like Mike Brown, is to have the level of respect, but also the level of relationship to say, hey Mike, you're the coach of the year and you're a 10 times better coach than I am, but I disagree with you, and here's why. And so there will be a certain level of analytical base in everything we do, but I also want coaches. I don't want scientists, I want coaches, right? And I want them to believe in what I'm presenting and believe in what's efficient and believe in our vision. But I also, at times, like there's a difference between spreadsheets and getting it done on the court. And now I'm always gonna watch film, I'm gonna go to the numbers, make sure my eyes are confirming with what the numbers say, right? That's just, I always wanna watch film first. okay, I think this kid's a great shooter, and I go to the numbers and he's shooting 24%. My eyes are probably a little messed up, right? It's like you use it as a baseline, right? But also, sometimes your eyes tell you something like he's got really good form. I think he can shoot. The numbers tell you something that he's not a good shooter, and now I'm trying to figure out why. Is it the type of shots he's shooting? Is his balance just a little that we can clean up a little bit? So those are things but to answer your question, yes, everyone on my coaching staff will understand a base level of analytics, but no, they're all not going to be scientists from Stanford. You know, no disrespect to Stanford.
Is there a understanding that this season is probably an exception, this off season? Is there a level of roster churn that is there like a general threshold where like there's a healthy amount and then that's too much in one year?
Yeah, I think there's a reality right now with my current situation of coming in quickly, Hamilton exiting. I think most of our roster, I know for a fact most of our roster had their minds made up to enter the portal, and which I'm totally okay with. Now, through conversations, both as a team, me in front of the entire team, and on an individual level consistently, they've gotten to know me a little bit, and now there's some curiosity. Now there's actually, I could see myself playing here, which makes total sense, you know, and that has nothing to do with what I'm presenting, and more so their reality of like, there's a big unknown up until whatever it was 10 days ago. And now it's like speed dating, right? We got to figure each other out real quick to see if we can make this work. But I knew there was going to be a lot of turnover, and some of it's by design, right? And on the other end, moving forward, there's always going to be some turnover. You can never have your entire roster happy. But I would like at least a core consistently. If you're not making the NBA, you continue on this path until I can get you there, right? And for some, everyone has their own timeline. For some guys, that's going to be 3-4 years, and we've had those 4-year guys at Florida State who now have made a ton of money at the next level. For others, you have your Scotty Barnes that is just ready. They're ready, and they go in and win Rookie of the Year in the NBA. Everyone's timeline is different. What I would like to do is create a healthy environment that is attractive and contagious, and guys want to stay. Right? Guys want to be a part of what we're doing. Even if they didn't play a single minute the year before, they trust what we're trying to help them with, and they trust our vision. Ideally, that means a few more guys would stay consistently. I don't know if that's reality or a pipe dream on my part.
We'll close it with Kurt.
You talked about wanting to be the fastest team in America. Is that like #1 Ken Pom tempo? Like, is that what I don't know if you're looking at Ken Pom, but.
You know, Ken Pom is I'm growing to like this Ken Pom. I've never been a big Ken Pom guy because at our level we have a lot of built-in analytical databases, and we literally have like data scientists working for. But Ken Pom, I'm figuring out very quickly that in the college space, Ken Pom is it. That's where you go. There's another one, Evan Maya, that I've leaned on pretty heavily. But yeah, I don't care what metric you use. I'm going to play at a reckless pace that in Golden State, Steve had a term, fast, loose, and disciplined, right? And so, but fast is first. You got to play fast. And that's when we were winning the championships. Loose, obviously, is like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Like, I'm not going to sit there and micromanage and control the game unless it's a dead ball and I need to put people in certain situations. So you got to have a level of confidence in what you're doing while you play at this reckless pace. But then discipline is where the beauty is, right? That's where the game the possession battle has to mean something to you. When I say reckless, I don't mean, sometimes as a player, I was reckless, just throwing the ball all over the place. I tell people all the time I would have hated coaching myself. like the discipline part is what makes championship level teams. So I don't know if that answered your question.
It was part of it. We don't have to get to the other part if you've got other stuff to do. It was kind of how deep with that. I mean, do you imagine your rotation's gonna have to be? And I mean, how important is depth in a place like you talked about in your opening press conference? You know, there are certain teams we're not going to be competing with prospects for, so you probably have to make up for that with depth.
Yeah. So depth is going to be important. I probably won't play like a 12-man rotation. I'm more of in the NBA, we're more of a 10 to 9-man rotation, but obviously you have more minutes and TV timeouts are a little bit longer. So I could see about a 10-man rotation as long as my athletes are in peak condition and they can carry out what we're doing. Obviously, the substitutions will be important and managing those minutes. But as the season goes on and the games get tighter and more important, I could see that rotation going down to 9 or 8. And I expect my guys, if they're going to play at the professional level, to be in absolute peak physical condition to carry that out.
All right, the